Senator Casey.
Mr. Chairman, thanks for having this hearing, you and the ranking member, and bringing in leaders to talk about workers and corporate greed, but also the promise of union organizing. And we're so grateful to be with these leaders. I wanted to start with obviously a related issue, and that's what has been termed greedflation. We just did a report about this last week. When major corporations are taking advantage of consumers by jacking up prices and blaming inflation, just because they can, without any kind of scrutiny. And when they jack up those prices, they hurt a lot of families, and that's what we're seeing all across the country. Here's the reality: just between 20 and 21, just between those few years, corporate profits rose 75%, 5 times the rate of inflation. That is, I think, for so many Americans, an abomination. When corporate profits are exploding by 75%, 5 times faster than inflation. When I travel across Pennsylvania, I hear about this every single day, whether it's people trying to pay their grocery bill or other household or family expenses. And greedflation is impacting our families. This is documented. This isn't some theory. We can document it, and we do in the report. And it's, if anything, it's elevated the significance of unions and why union organizing has never been more important. To give a worker and his or her family a shot at being able to make ends meet because they have the benefit of a union. And unions like those that are represented here today are critically important in this fight for workers. Strengthening workers' rights and protections, including the fundamental right to organize, which, by the way, is under threat. And anyone who thinks just because we had a legislation in 1935, the National Labor Relations Act, that everything's okay, every day of the week that right is under threat across the country. It's essential. That right to organize is essential to building an economy that works for all Americans. So my first question is, President Fain, not just because you've had a couple successful months with your organizing, but I'll start with you. As you know from the deal, the historic deal that you just negotiated, securing wage gains for auto workers, the big three are another example of this. They've seen record profits, and they've given their CEOs millions in salaries and bonuses while fighting to deny their workers a raise and keep their car prices high. How has corporate greed affected American car prices and worker wages?
When you talk about corporate profits exploding, I mean, the thing I don't want to get lost is here is at the same time they were exploding, worker pay was regressing, and conditions were regressing. You know, I've had, you know, Mr. Higgins was talking about how increases in pay will impact the economy negatively. You know, this goes back to the fear-mongering that takes place. Anytime we bargain a good contract, the next narrative that gets put out there is that, you know, the world's going to end because working-class people make a livable wage, and it's going to drive the price of vehicles up. But when you talk about what's happened the last 4 years, there's a sad irony to me. I didn't hear anything about this over the last 4 years. The price of vehicles went up 30 to 35% over the last 4 years. That wasn't due to worker pay going up, wasn't due to our benefits changing. It was due to one thing: corporate greed and consumer price gouging. And that's what's got to change in this country. And it's one thing I've learned throughout this process, throughout this bargaining process, and throughout my career is, you know, I've listened to analysts and people that, you know, write op-eds and things, and one thing I've learned is that most of these people have no clue what the hell's even going on in the work we do. And so, you know, they might be great professors, great, you know, pundits, but at the end of the day, you know, I've been at the bargaining table. I've been in the factory, working on the shop floor. You know, so, you know, working class people matter, and when working class people withhold their labor, nothing moves. And that's what people need to realize in this country. Billionaire class can build all the factories they want. If workers refuse to withhold their labor, they won't build a thing. And so, but corporate greed and consumer price gouging is all that's behind this.
Mr. Chairman, could I just add something for the record? If I could ask consent to submit for the record this greedflation report that we released last week.
Without objection.
Thank
Senator
you, Mr.
Cassidy.
Chairman.